Hi, Scorpio. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for February of 2020. For you, Scorpio, there's been a lot of movement into your fourth house of home and family, but this month the emphasis will begin shifting into your fifth house of children and childlike behavior. It's a house of fun, pleasure, and play, entertainment for you, and also the children and creative pursuits that are in your life. Um, we have two retrograde planets this month. One of them is Mercury, which I'll tell you all about in a little bit. But the other one is Juno, an asteroid to do with marriage. And Julia has some things to say about what Juno is going to be up to in your chart this month, Scorpio. Hey, Julia.
All right. Well, Scorpio, Juno, like Jamie said, is an asteroid that represents marriage. And the other very important relationship planet is Venus. But Venus shows us a little bit more about how we fall in love, how we express our feelings of affection, how we feel pleasure, whereas Juno really shows us what our long-term relationships needs are. So you can see that there's some very subtle but profound differences between the two. And Juno's going retrograde this month, which is kind of big news, especially because Valentine's Day is coming up. And any planet or asteroid that goes retrograde is really asking us to kind of review and reevaluate the themes with which it represents. So I'm going to look at her in a relationship context, but I'll start with Venus first, because Venus is going to be entering your sixth house of work and service on February 7th. And during this transit, we can get along really well with our coworkers, our clients, our bosses, or whomever is involved with our job. It's also a really great transit for work which has anything to do with Venus themes, like if you do anything artistic or design work, working with women, counseling, and beauty as well. So when Venus is in the sixth, we really try to relate to our partner by being of service to them in really practical ways. That might be helping them to get organized or being available to them in any way that they need us. Now, Juno is going to be going retrograde in your 12th house on February 8th. And this is a very hidden house, the most hidden house in the zodiac. So you may be a lot more quiet about what your long-term relationship needs are, kind of preferring to keep them hidden. So you can spend some time on your own thinking about what they are, so that when you're ready to really express them, you'll have done the right amount of soul searching first. The 12th house is also a house of service, just like the 6th house, but it deals with spiritual, emotional, and compassionate service. You could be reviewing how much compassionate support you've been giving your partner, and also whether your long-term partner is fulfilling your spiritual needs as well as just your earthly, mundane needs. Now, both of these planets, Venus and Juno, are going to oppose each other on February 25th, so there could be some tension between how you're of service to your partner and whether you're getting back what you're putting into the relationship. You also might be reviewing both the practical help that your partner gives you and whether they fulfill you on a more ethereal and spiritual level. I also want to talk about Mars too this month, because he begins this month in your second house of possessions and values. And wherever we have Mars is where we are really, really driven. So you could be working harder than ever to increase your income somehow. And you also might have to be called to fight for your values too at some point during that transit. Then when Mars enters the third house on February 16th, this is known as the house of communication, and this can be a real shoot from the hip transit. So just be careful that what you say can't be taken back in some ways, because you might be a little bit more sharp with your tongue. And what's going on with the lunations this month in the context of relationships, Jamie?
Well, there's a full moon coming in the sign of Leo on February 8th. And that for you, Scorpio, falls in house number 10, which is the house of career. And it comes opposite to the sun in your fourth house of home and family. Now, full moon is often a time when emotions run high. It's as if the sun and the moon are pulling us in opposite directions, and we can have some pretty strong feelings about that. And it's interesting to me that this full moon, which is going to be precise at 20 degrees of Leo, connects very much with that Juno in Libra and plugs right into those relationship themes that Julia was talking about, which is kind of normal for a full moon anyway because of the tug-of-war nature of it. But this is going to really weave those themes of career versus home and work and effort versus retreat and solitude in together so much more intensely. So it's really going to be about finding the balance in your relationship between, um, time apart, time together, solitude, and rest versus putting in an effort in the relationship, and time spent at work, which might be time separate from each other, or might be time together if you have a mom and pop business, and then time spent at home. So, balancing all those things is really what it's going to be about. And that will be felt pretty much all month as Juno moves along through the 12th house and is retrograde. But it's most pronounced on the date that Julia mentioned, when Venus and Juno oppose each other on the 25th, but also that full moon on the 20th. Is that right? Yes. So, no, February 8th at 20 degrees. Yeah. So it's a theme that, pretty much is going on all month. Now, then there are some strong Pisces themes that start to crop up this month. Mercury begins the month in the end of Aquarius, where he loves to be in Aquarius. It's just a great place to find Mercury, but very quickly moves into Pisces on February 3rd. And Mercury is not comfortable in Pisces. Mercury is considered to be in his sign of detriment, in a very difficult spot when in Pisces, because Mercury rules Virgo, which is opposite in its nature to Pisces. Mercury would so much rather be spending his time being meticulous, detail-oriented, and correct above all. But when in Pisces, Mercury becomes so much more dreamy, imaginative, fanciful, and is really prone to mental confusion. Now, this is almost an irony because, again, as the month goes on, and right around the middle of the month, Mercury, what's the date of it? February 16th, yes. Mercury goes retrograde. And it's hard to imagine a time that could potentially bring more confusion than a Mercury in Pisces, which is also retrograde. So it's going to really call forth all of the compassion and the gentleness and the kind words that we can muster, all of us, all of the signs, really. Um, and for you in particular, this falls in the house of creativity, which I think actually could be fun and pleasurable for you. And here's why I think that. Now, Mercury, the form of creativity that Mercury has to do with would be, say, writing, say, communication, say, journaling, even. Um, but forms of communication that can express. And when Mercury is retrograde in the fifth house, you may find yourself delving into an old creative project that your mind is just really eager to get back to chewing on. Or it may be that an old creative project rears its head because somehow, since between now and the time when you did it, it got kind of broken and needs a little fixing, a little tweaking, a little perfecting. And so this is absolutely the month for that kind of activity. And that could actually be fun for you, Scorpio. And so maybe Mercury retrograde doesn't have to be so bad. So also this month, and really at the end of the month, the sun moves into Pisces right here on the 19th, and then the moon joins it for a new moon on February 23rd. And Mercury is still right there, very much participating in the new moon in Pisces. So this really amps up the creativity. It brings your heart into the matter, whereas mostly with Mercury just there, it's been your mind. But now there is so much of a capacity to hunker down and really go deep into a creative process. So if you wanted to do some concentrated writing, some concentrated creating, and pull away from other people into a place of solitude where you are the only one who controls what goes on in that space, you couldn't look for a better time then the new moon on February 23rd. And you might particularly feel like the best time is sort of the aura surrounding that. So the 22nd to the 24th. Now, there's another great thing happening this month, and it's beginning on February 20th, and that is that Jupiter and Neptune are forming a super fantastic sextile, a harmonious connection between Jupiter and Neptune. And these are two planets that kind of get along to begin with. And I think it's going to feel really good, and it's going to last all year because this is just the first pass of 3. So Jupiter will be at 17 degrees of Capricorn in your 3rd house, while Neptune is at 17 degrees of Pisces in your 5th house, again weaving together those themes of writing and communication, very much 3rd house, and also 5th house themes of creativity and self-expression. But because Pisces is involved, that self-expression, I mean, you know how you are, Scorpio. You've never been one to go to a party and put a lampshade on your head. You know, you're so much more subtle than that. So for you, creativity is a pulling inward. It's an inward process, and that's really how it belongs to be. The big pile of Capricorn planets in your 3rd house, and especially Jupiter's presence there, really suggests that this year's growth and expansion for you is going to be related to career and also potentially, again, back to that theme of writing and communication. So this could be the year when you finally finish that dissertation. And this month might be the time when the seeds are planted for that project to actually find its fruition. And if you're not working on a dissertation, no worries. There's probably something creative that you're working on that would be enhanced by writing or by forming the right words. And in which case, this new moon is a really good time for that. Well, that's what we have for you today, Scorpio. If you were thinking, if as you were listening to this horoscope that we so lovingly made for you, if you were thinking about a reading and you wanted to know what kind, I would say that this 5th house emphasis that's going on, it points to self and creativity. It also points to children because this is the house of children. And if you have kids and you want support as a parent and a better understanding of how to raise each unique child, you would do really well to get a star child reading where you can get a thorough understanding and laying out of that child's temperament. So it doesn't have to be a mystery. And if instead you don't have children and you want, to amp up your creativity, well, then I would say that a natal and transit reading is the way to go. And we would love to do that with you. So yeah, that's what we have for you. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll be doing another one next month for March of 2020. You can find our horoscopes in our playlists on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology. And until next month, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.